Here. Thank you. Next, we're going to move into the public comment section. Just as a reminder to everyone, this is limited for agenda items only. The floor is now open for public comments. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. Do not address any individual commissioners directly, and note there will not be any back and forth discussion between the board and the public. Once your time is up, kindly conclude your comments and take your seat.
Start the clock.
Done.
Just wanted to bring something to your attention today. We have a scam going on in the county. We have phone calls going out to citizens saying they're representing, the person on the line is representing the sheriff's office, and they're collecting fines for people not appearing for jury duty. And the phone number on the caller ID is 445-3877, which is an old number we have at the sheriff's office for the jail. And it's the number we still have that comes into our office. So had a few people scam, one for $800 and one for $1,000. Thankfully, most of the people are realizing it is a scam, so we put this out on social media and the press release. Happened in Berrien County over the last month as well, so it's not unusual, but just to be aware that it's not the sheriff's office. We would never extort money out of you over the phone. One other thing I'd like to talk about is I want to give a shout out to maintenance. They do a great job. We talk about it all the time, but I gave them two things that out of their wheelhouse, and they answered up. One was painting parking lot stripes in the dispatch parking lot because it was getting kind of crazy over there. And not only did he paint it, but he went back, got the old documents to find out the original diagram. To figure out what that was. Then the other thing that they did in the sweltering heat is we have the fencing project at Animal Control, and they've gone out and cleared, what is it, 14 trees?
About that, yep.
About that in this hot weather to get it cleared out so they can start the fencing project after the 4th of July. So just want to give them a shout out and appreciate all that they do as well. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Should we be putting something on our Facebook page regarding that scam, just to get that out there?
Already
it is?
there.
Okay, I'm
We're
sorry.
there.
I must have, okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice. We're gonna close the floor for public comment. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
That's hers.
It's okay.
All right.
I'll
Second.
The agenda has been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and the agenda has been approved. Next, we'll need the approval of the May 16, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
The meeting minutes have been moved and supported. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it, the minutes have been approved. Moving along, we have the finance report, and as usual, the finance report is included in the packet. Does any member of the board have any questions for administration? Is there anything that we need to touch on or highlight from that report? No?
Only thing I can think of is we're very heavily into the budget process. I'd like to thank everybody that got all of their budgets entered, and obviously there's a whole collaborative process where department requested budgets go in, and then we work through that to draft a recommended budget we bring back to the board. So for those that got everything in on time, thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. We do not have any unfinished business to cover today. We're gonna go into new business. Just as usual, we'll discuss on each item and vote on it individually. That item will need a motion, a second, and in order to move it along to the business meeting. There are 10 new items, I believe, that we're gonna cover tonight. As we get going, if the meeting gets a little bit lengthy, anybody wants to take a quick break, just please feel free to speak up. We'll take a break in the middle of the meeting if we have to. So going into our first item, it's the employee insurance/benefit renewal plan for 2024-2025. I believe we have someone here from Rose Street Advisors that's going to speak on this item.
Yes, thank you. And I'm down from Kalamazoo, so I appreciate you letting me go first. Shorten my evening a little bit. For those who don't know, I'm Ben Cohen from Rose Street Advisors. So we are the insurance agency that helps with the benefits each year and throughout the course of the year. I'm here today to give you a brief overview of the key benefit decisions that have been made by the county for the benefits that renew again on September 1st. The biggest changes revolve around the county's compliance with what is called PA 152, otherwise known as the 80-20 or hard cap. We've had a lot of discussions about this over the years, so we're talking about that again this year. PA 152, as a refresher, requires all public employers in Michigan to choose between splitting the cost of health insurance premiums with employees either on an 80%, 20% basis, where the employer pays 80%, the employee pays 20%. This is what the county has traditionally done since the passage of this law in 2011. Or a public employer can select to use what is called the hard cap. This is an amount set by the state each year. This is also the default position that a public employer takes whether if they don't make a decision to go with an 80-20 decision. So that is the default action. That hard cap amount is set by the state each year. It is the maximum amount a public employer can spend on healthcare benefits for employee-only, dual, and family coverage. For plans beginning in 2024, just for some reference, that annual cost for a single person is about $7,700 a year. For two-person is about $16,100 a year, and for family is a little over $21,000 per year for healthcare coverage. For the 2024-25 year, Cass County has decided to move to the hard cap method to calculate those employee contributions. As an aside to this, I work with about a dozen public employers in Southwest Michigan. All except for Cass County is currently utilizing the hard cap, so every one of them has moved to the hard cap prior to this year, with Cass County being the only one that I currently work with that does not utilize the hard cap. Some of the advantages of the hard cap that most public employers see, it does lower the rate of increase for the county, just in pure transparency, at least based on the current enrollments, how people are enrolled. With the 80-20, if people change enrollments, that obviously can increase or decrease the county's costs. But it is still a cost to the county going forward into the new year. We're talking about a 5.5% increase versus about a 9.5% increase under the 80-20. So there is still an increase to the county regardless. As we know, benefit costs do not go down typically. The other advantage is that the ability for a public employer to budget benefit costs from year to year better. With an 80-20 split, you never know what those costs are going to be from year to year, so your 80% portion, or even and the employee's 20% portion, is variable from year to year. With the hard cap, the county knows in advance, well in advance, what that increase for the next year will be. For the current year, it was about 4.1% increase, and for the 2025-2026 year, it's at about a 0.2% increase. That's the lowest it's ever been. It usually ranges between 1 and 3 or 4% each year. The county also indicated previously that it was having recruitment and retention issues due to the fact that there were not any benefit plan options that were at zero cost to employees in terms of the premium contributions. Other competing municipalities that they were working against have the hard cap and are able to offer plans that have no cost to employees, and that was a severe disadvantage to Cass County. Cass County will now have a new health savings account, or HSA plan, that will have a $0 cost in premiums for employee-only coverage and very little cost for dual and family coverage going forward into the new year. The downside of the change to a hard cap is that the premium contributions for the existing Plan E and Plan G PPO plans will increase higher than they would have under the 80-20 split. But to help mitigate that increase, in addition to adding this new HSA plan that I mentioned, the county is also adding 2 new HMO, or health maintenance, you don't care about the acronym, HMO plans that largely mirror the deductibles that exist under Plan E and Plan G today. So they're meant to look as close as we can to what Plan E and Plan G look like today, but they're HMO plans instead of PPO plans. This results in much lower premium contributions for the employees to take those plans. The reason for this is HMO plans have lower costs due to being managed care organizations, meaning that employees have to choose a primary care physician, they have to have referrals to go see specialists. They also have to seek all non-emergency care in Michigan in the network for Blue Care Network. And again, that's non-emergency care. So emergency care can be done anywhere in the country, but for non-emergency care, it has to be done in the state of Michigan. For many employees, they primarily doctor in Michigan anyway, so it's a very worthwhile trade-off in terms of this cost savings. We did do the same thing in St. Joseph County, which again borders Indiana as well several years ago. And a significant number of employees did choose that HMO plan for that cost savings. As has been mentioned in some of the communications, we will have a robust communication strategy and education strategy for employees, including recorded employee meetings, in-person meetings, one-on-one employee meeting sessions, as well as written materials and information on the benefits portal Employee Navigator that the county uses. We'll be able and available to educate employees on which choice makes the best sense for their family, And we've been doing this for the last 9+ years in educating employees, and I hope that we've earned the trust to be able to educate that going forward as well. So with that, I'll entertain any questions on these changes.
Does anyone have any questions for our speaker here? This education that you touched on, when does that occur?
We have several sessions scheduled already. The times for the and locations are
We
will
have-
be determined, but
Yeah, we have 2 dates in July. So open enrollment always takes place the first week, generally the first week of August, and the plans go into effect in September. So this year we'll be running open enrollment from August 1st through August 9th. It'll actually carry over part during the fair and then part will be after the fair, which hopefully will help employees. So prior to that, we're going to start doing the meetings with employees, so around the end of July, mid-July.
Mid-July.
And yeah, so mid-July, there will be a pre-recording that will go out to all employees, then we'll start having on-site meetings. I just have to get with the electeds to figure out what times and days work best for them, but we do have some dates set aside. And then we will go through that, training with the employees, and they can have some information before they go into open enrollment. If they have questions, then they can start, getting with their doctors or looking at their medical situations to determine what might work best for them. We'll have time that they can speak with Ben, with Daisha, myself, as well, and we'll help, employees answer questions along the way. And then we'll do the same thing during open enrollment as well. So we'll actually have, I think 4 days of on-site that we're scheduling in July and August, and then we will also have the virtual stuff.
Okay, that seems pretty thorough. Is this like optional training that we do for our employees, or is it mandatory that we?
We've done this for our employees from the last 5 years that I've been here. I know that we've been doing that. I think prior to that, we did as well.
Yep. So traditionally, it has not been mandatory. I think the idea this year is that if you're not attending one of the in-person sessions,
Mhm.
that you're letting or signing off that you've watched the
Oh,
virtual
gotcha.
video, so that there is some.
Due to the changes this year, we want to make it where we were accounting for all employees.
Yeah.
Because some years we have great turnout. Usually when we have a lot of plan changes, we have more participation. When things stay the same, employees get used to the plan, so they don't have as many questions. So traditionally, we haven't, had as large of attendance. But because of the significance of the plan changes, we want to make sure that the employees are fully aware of what they're signing up for, so that September rolls around, October rolls around, and now they have a question where something wasn't covered. Well, I didn't understand that. Well, that's why we're going to make sure that they have documented that they have received the training and that they do
Yeah.
understand it.
And it seems like if we get this going today and at the BOC meeting, and there's plenty of time to get this going. Okay, that sounds
I
good.
have
Does
a
anyone have any
question.
questions?
Yeah, I'd like to know, we're not the employers, the 8 of commissioners here, we're not employers. What do the employers think about this plan? And that caveat's in the Judge Beeler.
Somebody else could go first. I didn't know you were gonna ask that question. I was just raising my hand, so when you were done.
That's my question.
Okay. So I guess I have a couple of questions. So you made the presentation that this year the county was deciding to go with the card cap, but the situation really is the BOC has to decide opt out, hard cap, or 80/20. The recommendation is to go to the hard cap, right?
That's
For
correct.
clarity.
If the Board of Commissioners doesn't vote at all, the default is hard cap.
Right, but
it's
I
being
just wanna be
presented.
clear, because we haven't said anything to our employees about any of this, and it made it sound like the decision's already been made, because there's people texting me that are listening on the situation, like why we haven't told them, so there's been no board action or decision made
Yeah.
on hard cap 80/20 or opt-out, right?
No.
Well, I,
guess.
No, and it is, with respect to insurance benefits, it is up to the Board of Commissioners with respect to hard cap, 80-20, those sorts of things. The Board of Commissioners does retain that ability to, I mean, it's.
So
it's-
when do
Well,
we,
and I'm not lobbying against or for it, I'm
Mhm.
just saying for clarity, I wanted that clarified, because there are people listening. That decision is going to be made maybe tonight, but
Correct, the
it hasn't
recommendation.
been made. It's a
Correct.
recommendation,
Yes.
okay?
Yep.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be made tonight, it would
It'd
just
be
be
made-
pushed forward.
it'd
be pushed
maybe at the
forward.
next
I'm
meeting. Yeah,
sorry.
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I guess it really depends on how the board would prefer to approach it, because if it is the hard cap, there really is no resolution you have to pass, because that's the default. If you chose to opt out or opt into the 80-20, that's where you would have to pass a resolution annually to do it. So depending, I mean, I guess we could potentially bring a resolution that would select the hard cap if that's what the board wanted to do.
So-
It's not required, but.
I
how,
would hope the decision's gonna be made so that the employees can plan accordingly, but I understand that if you do nothing, that's what the law says, but I would think we'd wanna give the employees the heads up that, hey, that's what we're doing. But-
so what I would like to see, what that's my question would be, is we move it forward tonight. We're not moving forward our decision, we're moving forward that we're gonna, but if we go between now and the BLC regular meeting, that will give the employers a chance to let the employees let us know what they would like, or is that,
Well, I don't know that I want the employees reaching out to you all about.
well,
what
not
they would
us, I'm
like.
talking about you all, the elected officials, the
Yeah, I guess
employers.
I mean, if this is, and that's why words to me matter, and again, I'm, retentive, so I apologize, but like,
Yeah,
I
me
wanna
too.
know if admin's recommending this and they're employed to give recommendations, then they're recommending it, and then we're looking at it, and, you know, it's just, there's several things, like, there's talk about, like, the one plan requires everybody to get their cure in Michigan, which I would personally love to do, but unfortunately, it's really hard to find providers that are close by here that will treat the things that you need treatment for, but I might be the exception. And I'm not saying it's about me, it's not, but I know I have employees who've told me they've got the same problem, and so then it ties into our time off, et cetera, right? Because, if they can run down to Granger for a quick appointment versus if they have to go up to Grand Rapids, then that impacts.
Cause all
them.
mine's in Indiana.
So, again, I'm not saying it for or against it, it's just gonna be something that we need to talk with the employees about so that it doesn't become a big uproar, because
Yeah.
I would love to, we've talked for years about everybody trying to go to the Cass Family Clinic because it's really close and convenient, but unfortunately, doctors come and go there and rotate, and then they say they won't see you for certain things. So, again, it's workable, and maybe this is a good thing, but it would be nice to, just talk to the employees a little bit, because the specialists are the hard ones.
Yeah.
And now it's hard because all the doctors, because they lost money during COVID and stuff, are requiring that they won't even make a referral without going and having the visit where they say they make the referral.
Right.
And I've had that happen in the last 2 months, 3 times to family members, so.
Just to clarify, Plan E and Plan G are remaining exactly the same, so there will be no changes to Plan E and Plan G on the PPO side. You can go in Michigan, you can go in Indiana, it makes no difference. We're adding options for the HMOs, so we're adding additional options besides those PPOs. And then the high deductible plan is being modified as a POS plan, which acts as an HMO in Michigan, but still as a PPO outside of Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't make that clear. I was
Oh, no.
speaking of the new plan that is listed as a savings to the employees for different
Yes.
categories. And I appreciate that. I appreciate those options to look at. I guess what I was just saying was that I know in the courts, because we ran this data before, that there's more people on Plan E than any plan. And I know a lot of them are on the family plan. And I understand that costs the county a lot of money. I understand all that. I'm not saying I'm opposed, but what I'm saying is I would like to be able to talk with some of my people that I know are impacted by this, because there is a rate increase for them then because of going hard cap. And I know there would be a rate increase for you all going 80-20. And I understand there would be a rate increase for the employee going 80-20, but these are all complicated things. And when you talk about employee retention, et cetera, and with inflation that everybody knows that's out there, it's really important that we have these conversations with our employees.
Sure. Well, and I think the other thing to keep in mind too is, and Ben, jump in if I'm wrong, but when you see a lot of those 80-20 splits, and I think you're looking in a lot of those cases at places that offer minimal numbers of plans. And that's why, it's like, this is our plan and this is what the cost share is. What we've seen in years prior is that when you offer, a cafeteria of, 6 or 7 choices, 80-20 doesn't really provide you a lot of benefit. So a good example is in the HSA plan. We've had that plan for a long time, but the difference in cost for Plan E, which was the richer plan versus the HSA plan, was what, $70 a month?
For a family.
Whereas now, you're looking at a savings of, roughly, what, $375 potentially? I mean, so that is one thing, is that the hard cap enables some of those different plan options for employees to make decisions that make sense. I mean, in a lot of cases now, right, like, I guess just using myself as an example, I would look and go, well, Plan E to Plan H, I'm saving $70, but I have a deductible that's 6 times higher. Why would I choose that? But if I'm looking at it and saying, oh, well, I can save $400 a month that way, what are my, how much do I go to the doctor? What are my prescription costs? Those sorts of things. Like, there's a lot more personalization that can then happen for everybody to decide, well, when I have this level of choice, do I need this service, or is there something else that would allow me to save money that would make sense? And that answer is going to be different for everyone, obviously. Not everybody's going to have the same circumstances, but it's not something we can really do if we don't move to a hard cap.
Do we have time for the employers to talk to their employees, to have them come back to us so we can make the best decision for the county employees? So we don't have that uproar that she's talking about?
I mean, we could have it go to, I guess we'd be looking at the next regular meeting would be July 11th.
Because we could always pull the item from the consent agenda and put it back under new business,
Well,
if there's something that we need to address.
We have to build the portal and we have to do a lot of preparation.
Yeah.
So timing is.
Timing is, yeah.
needs
Does
to go
now,
next
between
meeting,
now and the
yes.
next board meeting, does that give the employers enough opportunity to be able to see if there's any real concerns or something that we would need to address?
Well, perhaps let me offer this kind of out of school. I could potentially have a video recording next week that could go out much earlier than our anticipated July 15th date, so that there would be adequate time for people, so that rumors don't run amok and people get upset without knowing all the facts.
I guess that
Yeah.
was, and I appreciate you offering that, what I was just trying to say, it would be nice if instead of it feeling like it's being imposed, it sounds like there's a lot of great options that admin has researched.
Mhm.
And if we feel that's the case, it would seem like we'd wanna share that information on the front end, so that if employees do have concerns, they could tell us and we could then advocate for them.
Yeah, it's just a little tough sometimes with the catch-22 of not having all the materials.
I
not having- so
understand, but
it's
we
just-
have done that years ago, and for some of us that have long memories, I hear what's being said about Plan E, but people forget we used to have Plan D, and it was even better, and that got taken away, and the people that have been here long-term remember that, and again, I'm not saying that it's like a negative, but it would be great if we think this is the best thing, and that's what the administration is recommending, and that we should trust them, and why can't we at least get that information out to them so that they could understand it better? Because if we're saying we're trying to be transparent and do what's best for all concerned,
Yeah.
let's show them.
Commissioner Marquetti, do you have something?
Yes, I heard Ben just offer to do a video recording and have it ready next week.
Yes.
Would that be helpful for you, Carol?
Yes, that would be great. That's what I said, that would be great.
Let's do that.
What about the rest of them, though? We have 5 other elected officials.
It would go to all employees.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So if I'm understanding, then that we'll be able then to, if there's something that does come up, we'll be able to pull it from consent agenda, put it under new business, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna just try to get the information out, and then, but we need to keep this moving along.
And just to clarify, the PPO Plan E essentially keeps the same, they get the same benefits, just there's a difference in cost.
Correct.
So they can continue to go into Indiana if they go with Plan E.
Yep.
And then the RX plan is giving them a cheaper option with stipulations that they, if it's not emergency, they have to do it in Michigan. If it is an emergency, they can go wherever they need to.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the HMO.
I think that's kind of the big thing, like you're essentially, the plan's not going to change, just the cost is if you go with PPO Plan E.
Correct.
Yeah,
Well, and what we can do is, even though there wouldn't be a resolution that's required, it would be straightforward to, if the board was in agreement with this, to have a motion under the consent agenda to move forward with the hard cap for fiscal year 25, or 24-25. And then if there was a reason to change that, then of course that's, within the board's purview. We could have a resolution ready for the alternative if that's what we need to do.
What do you guys wanna do?
Either or, yeah, what he said, to have, get the video out and have one of each. That way, whatever decision we make, it'll all be ready and we won't miss any deadlines. Sheriff had something back there.
Sheriff?
Just the employee information sessions, if we can solidify those dates quicker,
Yeah,
so we can get it out to
Yeah,
the
makes
employees, so
sense.
they can make their plans, because so often
Yeah.
they get busy
makes
with that.
sense.
Monroe Street's always been good about coming to my second shift people to get them
Yeah.
included, but it's always that last second is hard to fill those, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
yeah.
I'll reach out to the electeds and confirm the dates that we have, set aside and confirm what, timing works best.
Yeah, because if the electors are happy, because they're the employers, then this board should be satisfied as well.
So it sounds like you've got a pretty good plan. If there are no further questions or discussion,
I move that we move that forward to the business meeting.
I second.
all right, we have motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the motion has been approved. Thank you.
Yep, thanks,
you.
man.
All right, moving into the next agenda item, number 2, we have the annual foreclosure report from Treasurer Anderson.
Want the lights off, folks?
I don't think so. Every year I give a report for forfeitures and foreclosure for the year. Of course, delinquent taxes are turned over by the villages, the city of Dowagiac, and the townships to the county treasurer, who must purchase them from the local governments. This happens on March 1st, after March 1st every year. This allows local units, including our schools, 911, public transportation, council on aging, medical care facility, to continue operating unimpeded by delinquent tax debt. The collection of delinquent taxes then becomes the responsibility of the county treasurer, who begins sending delinquent tax statements to the owners and parties of interest in the property. Oops. There you go. The first graph shows delinquent tax trends. This year, we advanced $5,854,096 for 4,185 parcels. That's 22 fewer parcels than last year, but they cost $838,000 more. I believe the reduction in the number of parcels is a direct result of my office's push to help homeowners apply for the MyHalf program. That program assisted homeowners who were negatively affected by COVID, either a reduction in their income or an increase in their expenses. We've received in the county $2 million of assistance for our homeowners, and about $1 million of that went to delinquent taxes. Now, what's behind that significant increase in the dollar figure? I'd say primarily that reason is because in 2023 was the first time property tax taxable value increased the maximum of 5%. This was the biggest increase in 28 years.
Yeah.
Under what's often referred to as Proposal A, the taxable value on a primary residence can go up based on the rate of inflation in a year, or 5%, whichever is greater, or rather, whichever is less. So we can blame higher inflation for the increase in our 2024 taxable value as well. Yes, that means back-to-back, at least 5% hikes in taxable value. Now, of those 4,185 parcels, most of the homeowners will pay their delinquent taxes within 2 years' time. After the first year they're delinquent, it will roll into what's called forfeiture. Forfeiture starts the 12-month process of foreclosure. That's when we really ramp up notices. We do a 40-year title search so that everybody who could possibly have an interest in this parcel is notified. We do personal visits, multiple notices, posted in the newspaper twice. And again, I personally visit homeowners at high risk of foreclosure, because our number one goal is to prevent foreclosure. We have kept the number of foreclosures to less than half of what it was in 2019. This year, the foreclosure total was 28. Of that 28, 27 of them were vacant land or abandoned homes or mobile homes. significant number of them where the owner just didn't want it anymore. 12 of them, they flat out just don't want it. They either bought it at a tax sale previously, or they just found out that it was not buildable, or they bought it to flip it and they couldn't sell it. So there's lots of different reasons that they just didn't want the property anymore. 6 of them, the owner is deceased and the family doesn't want the property anymore. Often because there's not a clean title to the property and they don't want to mess with it. They don't want to probate it. And then there was actually 5 of them. The owner passed away, no probate, no family. I looked up obituaries, I researched probate court, and there were no open probate cases on them. So, unfortunately, not the best way, but this does clean up title when you do foreclose. It cleans up title. So you have been provided with the list of tax reverted properties for 2024. Under the right of first refusal, the county has the opportunity to purchase any of these properties. The priority order for purchase options is as follows. First goes to the state of Michigan, followed by the city, villages, and townships, and finally the county. Every year, the Board of Commissioners votes to either purchase or refuse to purchase tax reverted properties. My review of this list found none that I would recommend for the county to purchase. The board can vote to refuse the purchase of tax reverted properties at your next regular board meeting, which happens on July 11th. Should the board wish to purchase any of these properties, a special meeting would be necessary. The deadline for such a purchase is July 9th. I'd be happy to answer any questions you would have.
You say you recommend that we don't,
No, I don't, there's nothing there that,
so that's what we should go with.
the majority of them are better to be sold to an adjacent parcel owner, because it's just a strip of land. We've already sent letters to all of the neighbors. That's one of the things extra that we do, because I'd rather see a neighbor buy it than an investor or a developer from California who thinks he's buying a gold mine and can flip it. I'd rather have the neighbors buy it.
That's where
They
we
care
had the
about
most
county. So
most
we-
problems.
Yeah, so we've already sent out 20-some letters
Yeah.
to neighbors of these properties.
I move that we move it forward with Hope's recommendation of not purchasing to the next general meeting.
I'll second.
All right, so that's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion's been approved.
The public auction will take place Tuesday, September 3rd. That is the website, www.tax-sale.info.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If Hope don't want to buy them, neither do I.
Good enough for me. All right, moving right along, we have agenda item number 3. That's the fiscal year 2025 Community Corrections Application and Plan by Sheriff Banky and Krista Smith. Or not.
That's you. That's you.
Community Corrections is an annual grant application. They do programs within the jail to help inmates prepare to get better on the outside, whether it's through drug addiction programs, educational programs, or anything. The grant provides a portion of that salary, and then the county kicks in the balance of it for a full-time person, Krista Smith, who's very valuable to our office. Any questions?
I think the grant request this year is 81,502.
81,000, yes, I'm sorry.
I just want you to tell Krista what a great job she did on this. This is a lot of work.
It is. It is.
She
Felt like
did
I
a
was
great
having a
job.
packet.
Yeah.
Big.
That's why we gotta keep her around.
We do. Make her happy.
That is very good.
I'm going to move that we move the annual plan to the agenda for the July 11th meeting.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and support. Is there any further discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it, the motion has been approved. Doing pretty good. All right. Number 4 is the ESRI GIS software.
Hello, I'm Eric Esplin, I'm your GIS director. This agenda item is for renewal of the GIS software contract for the minimum contract term of 3 years. Esri is the standard GIS software used by private sector, federal government, state, and our surrounding counties and local units. This software is critical to the GIS department and is utilized in various ways by other departments, offices, county partners, and contractors. It's necessary for state mandated requirements, for example, participation in the state 911 repository, as well as supporting the city of Dowagiac GIS MOU, which generates $75,000 of annual revenue. Copies of the sole source provider and state of Michigan contract are included in your packet. This contract encompasses maintenance, licenses, training provisions, technical support, and data access, and has been incorporated into all of our department's projected budgets.
Yeah, we have to have GIS.
Yes, we
Yes.
do.
Software is critical.
So I'm gonna make a motion that we move this forward to the
Support.
regular meeting.
All right, we have motion and support. Is there any further discussion? I have something I want to ask real quick, but I want to see if anyone else has anything. Is there any change that's going to be happening from the previous agreement to this agreement as far as cost or any?
Yes, there was a small, well, there was a $3,500 annual cost increase that they had made us aware of for some time, so we have been incorporating it into our projected budgets.
Okay,
And that's across the board. It's through the state of Michigan contract. All Michigan counties are experiencing that price increase from the software company
so that's going to be for every year, right?
every year.
Okay.
unfortunately.
I just wanted to ask that. Does anyone else have anything?
Nope.
So again, we have a motion and support. There's no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The ayes have it, the motion's been approved. Thank you. Number 5, we have the National Opioid Crisis Management Congress. Judge Bueller.
Yes, we are requesting the BOC to consider expending opioid settlement funds to send a couple of folks to the National Opioid Crisis Management Congress. Looks like a good opportunity to exchange information. I don't think it would be something that we would be requesting like on an annual basis, even though, you know, they've been doing it for several years now. But I think it would be great to establish some connections so that then we could use those connections moving forward to exchange information and just learn about things. I know that I sent out an email to all of the committee members and there were several people interested in attending, so we would probably do a round robin email to just finalize up to 2 people to go if they were able to, because I would want to turn everything into Jennifer Renfro so that we could get the early bird discount, because it was a good early bird discount,
Yeah, it
so. And although this wasn't part technically of our opioid settlement fund plan that we would do this, I feel it's important as the chair of that committee just to keep us having national connections as well as state connections, which I know people like Roseanne and others on our committee are involved with Matt and other people, but I think it's good for us to do this one time, and then if we find it's really super duper, maybe there would be a request in the future. I guess I shouldn't foreclose that possibility, but we would like permission to send up to 2 people as set forth in the motion, and that would cover then the travel and the hotel. And we would obviously choose whoever we send to do the most cost-effective option in terms of the travel and everything, but it is in Nashville, which is a doable drive, but you can also get cheap flights there, so.
I'm just curious, I know last year when we were looking at the budget, we did have to cut some training. Was this something that you probably would have had in your budget before to?
This is something that just came to my attention because I'm the chair of the opioid
Okay.
advisory committee.
Okay.
Like, it's been going, I think this is the 8th year, but it wasn't on my horizon, and it's not something we would plan to send any, for example, court staff to. It looks like a good conference, but we can only spend our like drug court grant dollars on certain kinds of trainings. And we get capped out unfortunately because their national conference is so expensive, so.
Well, and I would add that, like, this would be funded through the opioid settlement fund, as that's.
Okay, right,
It's
right.
It would be 100%
And-
funded from those
Yeah.
funds if you all agreed. If you
Yeah.
don't agree,
Yeah.
then that's also fine.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
the
I
committee's
just
gonna
thought
be
it was
responsible for selecting the 2 people.
I would like authorization to just get consensus in our committee, to send people from the committee. I believe that at least in the initial, there were several that expressed interest, but we could certainly amongst ourselves agree I know that myself and the vice chair, and I know Dr. Weirman and others, I think the sheriff even said that would be a good thing to attend, so we could figure it out though amongst ourselves, but.
And I think when you look at the fact that, this past year, a few months ago now, we've implemented an opioid settlement funding plan. We're gonna see more of those funds trying to be utilized to help support the community. Being able to send some folks to be able to get some training and some practical knowledge as to how are we addressing this, what are the best ways we can collaborate, those sorts of things is really important to helping drive the use of those funds into the future.
And I know it's not the same thing, but we've found over the years since 2001 when we first started drug courts, that it's been really helpful to have those national connections to make sure we're doing what's on the forefront. And I feel like that could be the same with this, because everybody's learning and kind of doing things as they go.
Well, I guess in a lot of ways too. I mean, when we look across the state, Cass County is actually more on the forefront of looking at how we're managing our opioid settlement funds than many other counties. I mean, so I think it's a testament to what we're doing, and I think this only helps reinforce that effort as well.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a good use of funds. Does anybody from the board have any thoughts, questions, concerns for the judge? All right, hearing none, I entertain a motion to have this moved along.
So move.
Oh, please.
Oh, you're okay.
So we have a motion. Any support?
Mary.
Second.
Second. All right, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion?
So just to clarify, we would be allowing the opioid committee to pick 2 people to go to the Congress, to this Congress meeting, and then it would be paid for by the opioid funds.
Yes.
So just to help Monica clarify.
At a cost not to exceed $5,000.
Yep.
At a cost not to exceed $5,000.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
So again, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion's been approved. All right, number 6, cleaning extension / interim agreement. Administrator Newton.
Yeah, so our current cleaning contract for custodial services expires at the end of July. So throughout the preceding months, we've been looking at RFP processes, things like that. How do we want to approach this as we go forward? One of the challenges with that is that obviously we have a historic courthouse building coming online that will be included. And we're trying to kind of coordinate, okay, what do we do with kind of the annex space here when we do that? What cleaning demands are there really going to be over there? And it's been hard to kind of articulate what we're really going to need until some of those things are in there to be able to know what do we actually need to have services for. The other thing we've been talking about is wanting to look at kind of parse out different options. So maybe there's kind of an option 1 is kind of more of an extensive cleaning option, and maybe we have other options for vendors to bid on that might be, maybe we look at reductions in more private office spaces with more of a focus on public areas, things like that. Are there ways that we can approach this in some way to kind of look at controlling costs in some way? Part of the challenge with that is obviously we know that the courthouse is moving along well, but we wanted to try to find an opportunity to be able to get a little bit closer to where some of those finishes, some of those things are done, and we're able to have walkthroughs of the space, things like that, and have people really give us a firm estimate. Here's what this is going to cost to clean. Right now, it'd be very difficult to be able to do some of that. So we sat down and we talked amongst ourselves between the finance director and facilities director and myself, and talked about what might be the best ways to go about it. We approached our current cleaning vendor to say, hey, would you be agreeable to looking at a short-term extension of, say, 2 months to give us time to be able to get to that point where we could have more of an extensive look at the courthouse for vendors. I mean, one of our fears essentially was that you could have somebody that bids on the rest of it, and then depending on what happens, maybe you have one vendor who the cost to clean over there are higher than what that vendor would have been, and so you ended up paying more than what you might have if you'd have been able to lump it all in together at once. So they basically had indicated that they were agreeable to looking at more of a short-term option to be able to do that through essentially the end of September. So that was what we were bringing to you guys today for consideration, was whether to look at some sort of an interim agreement. Barring that, I mean, we could still move forward with an RFP process if we wanted, but with the caveat that we're probably gonna have to look at some later amendments to that, if we're not able to, you know, really incorporate the courthouse much at this point.
So, since we're talking about the courthouse, like where are we at in that process, and how does that play in with this contract?
Yeah, I mean, with that, I think drywall is mostly done. Flooring work is actually going to start on the 3rd floor, you know, next week. Bathrooms are getting close to where, you know, I think at least on the 3rd floor, they're starting to put partitions, some of the fixtures, things like that. Flooring is close to being done there. In the 3rd floor corridor, they're working on getting flooring ready for that, I think, in the next week or two. So, you know, in terms of some of those kind of fits and finishes that we would really want people to be able to look at, that is coming along well. I would anticipate that in the next month, we would have, you know, a really good opportunity for people to be able to come in and actually walk around, look at it and go, okay, yep, this is what we're looking at cleaning, this is tile, this is carpet, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, not that we couldn't utilize floor plans, but we thought that people being able to actually view it and see it and understand it a little bit better was important. That sometimes when you just start looking at floor plans, like, well, what's that again, what's this? Like, it can be confusing.
So for just so I can understand this, are we looking to get the courthouse cleaned right now before it's finished?
No. No, it would essentially be included as part of any future custodial agreement is what it would be. And so that was kind of the idea was do we look at entering some sort of an agreement and exclude the courthouse or the historic courthouse and then amend it later? You know, after talking about it, we thought a viable option was to look at just kind of extending our current services for 2 months to give us the opportunity to be able to, you know, get to a point where vendors would be able to walk around, look around, and be able to give us a firm price on what that would cost to do that.
So it's just extending our contract for 2 more months.
Yeah, essentially it'd be just a
what it is
short-term
right
agreement
now.
of 2 months, yep.
And putting it for a calendar year too.
Yeah, and the other advantage is that it would tie into our fiscal year. So that was the hope, was that at that point, you know, contracts would start at, you know, October
Right.
1st and run through
Yeah.
September 30th.
Yeah. Through September 30th.
I think I understand that better. So does any member from the board have any questions, thoughts, concerns?
I do. I've been in contact with another cleaning service that cleans the college, and they do a really good job. I've heard nothing but good things about them. I think it would, you know, be to a benefit to possibly entertain the fact of them quoting this so that we'll have something in place by the end of July. So I will be more than happy to forward that information on to you.
I mean, and we could look at quotes. I mean, the reason we had, I guess, just proposed an extension is we weren't sure, and we had thought that was the simpler solution. I mean, with any cleaning vendors, when you start talking about, you know, 4 buildings and 120-some thousand square feet of space, you know, what sort of resources would a vendor be willing to designate on a guarantee of 2 months of service? You know, that was, I think, why we had said, well, maybe that would be, I have heard great things about that vendor too. Would certainly be interested in seeing, you know, in terms of a proposal, what they would do, you know, on an annual basis as well. But we weren't sure, you know, is that something that somebody would really be interested in for just a short duration to say, well, we can guarantee it, but 2 months at a time, and then we'll see what happens from there. I mean, I don't know staffing wise if that's something they'd be, you know, capable of now. I mean, part of it is we didn't want people necessarily looking at, well, we got to hire folks to go and fill this other responsibility, whatever, knowing that, you know, it isn't guaranteed to be a longer term. I mean, it certainly makes sense for the RFP that we're going to do to have that be there, because, you know, that's looking at more like a 2-year sort of an agreement if we mirror what we did last time. But we could certainly look to get quotes if you wanted us to do that.
I think it would they could just satisfy that time and then just kind of slide in, and they get the lay of the land better, to know the buildings and everything better. That's my thought on this.
What's our normal procedure when a contract expires?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
has
you
to
could
be.
do that.
Yeah, and that was part of, I guess, what our concern was, is that, you know, when you get to that point, I mean, not that we could solicit quotes, but you're almost talking about like an RFP process for an interim agreement. And, you know, did it really make sense to do an RFP for a 2-month time frame? it seemed like, you know, a simple extension while we worked on a more formal RFP for, you know, a 2-year agreement might make more sense, but, I mean, we could go about it a couple different ways.
Yeah, because when the 2 months are up, then we have to take bids from.
Yeah,
Open it
yeah,
up.
we would have a formal
Open
process,
it
and
up.
we're hoping to get, you know, a number of bids from that, and I think, like I said, the idea would be is that we wanna look at, you know, a couple different options. I mean, we're gonna be reaching out to, you know, our representatives and, you know, our elected officials in other buildings as well, and saying, hey, you know, what are the requirements that we have? Like, you know, this is what we've been doing, or what's specified at the very least. Is this really required? You know, do we,
Yeah.
if we're supposed to be cleaning, you know, this space 5 times a week, is that required? You know, what if we did it 3 times? What if we did it once a week?
Right.
I mean, a good example of that, right, is like trash, for example. I mean, maybe I'm just speaking for me, but I probably only have trash that needs to go out maybe once a week, and I could probably take that out to the dumpster myself, you know. What are the level of service we're providing? How does that compare with what the expectation is? I mean, obviously, public areas, we want to make sure those are pristine, but what, are we meeting the needs in our, you know, more private office locations? Are we maybe doing more than we need to? You know, are employees willing to do, you know, some of that, like vacuuming?
Yeah, and meanwhile, we could be getting that information from our.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like to really kind of chart this out so we can make sure that whatever the next couple of years is, that it's done the right way, and then not having to worry about circling back to amend an agreement to include a different space. Also then working to figure out what does that annex look like. So a good example, right, is like, I think when you look at MSU Extension, DOC, do we want to do cleaning in there because it's a county building? Do we not? You know, I mean, I think there are a few question marks you have to figure out, where I think some of the cleaning may be happening now, but probably more of an extension of those areas were spelled out in the previous agreement. Do we want to walk some of that back? I mean, so there are a few like complexity things we need to figure out too.
Judge?
Dave, who's here from Facilities, has been great to work with, and he is our liaison with the cleaning company currently. And I believe I read in the written report that he supports this plan of moving forward. I would think, so anyway, I just wanted to say, we've had great experience working with Dave to liaison on cleaning issues, so I hope that we'll continue to operate something similar, because he's very helpful and his team is very helpful. Secondly, I hope that when the RFP process gets started, and we'll probably have to start soon if we're gonna meet these short timeframes,
Yes.
that the elected officials would be able to like have a meeting with administration and Dave, and so that we could all like talk about some of these issues, because in terms of the list of what's being done or not done, or what could be cut out, we could then have honest discussions about those things.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what we want to do.
I just wanted to voice that for the record, because I know it's on a lot of the employees' minds about the cleaning, so to be sure that there is going to be, that we won't run out of time, and then there won't be time to have that kind of meeting, so that's just my request. Thank
Am I
you.
allowed to talk again?
Yes, please go ahead.
I totally agree with you, Judge Beeler. For the employees, if there is a problem, there has to be a clear, concise path for complaint. And the complaints need to be taken seriously, and action has to be filed on it. I feel really good that Dave's involved on this.
And just to be clear, just that, to ease your mind, there is a very clear path, at least in our building, in my opinion, because we have an email, and I've asked all the employees repeatedly to let us know, and then we talk with Dave, and Dave always follows back up.
And Dave will
Always.
continually be involved on
So
everything.
He deserves kudos for that.
Dave's done a fantastic job.
May I ask, I don't know this, but what is the process? Like if somebody needed to file a report or a complaint, what is the process and the end result?
We have an email that's for cleaning issues that they email, and they CC, if it's my employees, I'm saying, and by my, I mean court employees, they CC me so that I'm aware, just so that then I can follow up with the powers that be, and that is a distribution email, and it goes to Dave and to Matt. And I don't know if there's other people it goes to, but,
Just the 2 of us right now.
and
Comes
that's,
us.
then I follow, if I haven't heard something, which that's not happened so far, I would then follow up with Dave and Matt and say, hey, what's going on with this?
Yeah. And then our current agreement specifies that, like, if there are issues, that they should be corrected within 24 hours. And I know Dave does a great job of following up with the vendor and, hey, here's what's going on, let's talk about this, let's figure
And
this out.
I know we love to gossip in this county, but, there were recently some complaints in our building, and I notified Dave, and those issues were corrected that same day, so, again, with Dave's facilitation, so I really wanna thank him, because that is helpful, because if the employees tell me, and then I have to go inspect the bathroom, and then I get him on the phone, the fact that he's so responsive, it's very much appreciated.
I totally support Dave being involved.
So I just wanted you to know that we have been working
Okay.
with maintenance.
Do we need to have an official motion for you guys to have a meeting to discuss it, or is that
No.
something you guys can, okay, just
No,
to
we-
clarify, just, you know.
We will absolutely do that, I can tell you
Okay.
that. I would not purport to make any changes in other buildings without obviously working with our elected officials and other folks to make sure those are agreeable.
And I wasn't trying to imply that, I just wanted to make a plug for it.
Sure.
Because the employees want that to happen so that we can make sure, because our buildings are all really different.
Mhm.
Commissioner Marquetti?
Yeah, so what we're being asked to do is to extend the agreement for, it ends, it's at the end of July, and we're asking, what we're being asked to do is to extend the agreement for August and September.
Mhm.
That's what we're asking.
Yeah, so then we would go through the process, and it would start very soon.
Then we go through the RFP process
But
and.
we're creating a list right now of what all the cleaning specs are for each of the buildings, to then, you know, go back out to each of the buildings and say, is this correct? Is there anything we're missing? Is there anything in terms of frequency or something we need to do? And then we'll be issuing, you know, a formal RFP, ideally to try to time it up a little bit to where we get just a little bit further
Okay.
in the historic courthouse, so that, you know, that can be properly
So that can
bid.
be, right,
Yeah.
okay. So then I'm gonna make a motion that we move this on to the regular meeting to extend an intern agreement with the cleanest company?
Do we have a motion? Any support?
Support.
The motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion? I will have one thing that I want to add to this. So, I mean, I appreciate the fact that we're gonna, you know, potentially extend this 2 months so that we can do a more thorough process to be able to get a better RFP process put together. But to me, it's just concerning that we know that this contract was gonna expire in July, and we're waiting till the last minute to try to make this better. It just seems that if we knew that this was gonna expire, this conversation should have been already had. We should have been in preparation for this contract to expire, so we could follow our normal procedures and then move this thing right along. I don't know why we're in a situation where we're having to force ourselves to extend this 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like, we really would have had no way to know exactly where we were gonna be with the historic courthouse.
Yeah,
So,
that's-
Yeah.
Okay.
It's extending it is because
I mean, and we,
to evaluate exactly what your cleaning cost is gonna cost you to go into somewhere and look and see, okay, this is gonna take this time, this time, this time. You really need, it's best to look at it, to get a better view and give you a more accurate dollar amount for a bid. So by us waiting till the courthouse is a little further along, that will help them give a more
Maybe we'll walk
accurate
through
bid.
it. Okay.
yeah, I mean, and it's certainly possible, like, we could have gone through an RFP that would have been, you know, basically kind of mirroring what we had from before, you know, and had that done before the end of July. But, you know, I mean, after we met and talked about it, you know, we thought this was probably the best course to try to make sure we avoid having to circle back to this multiple times in the next few months, you know.
And then, so this is enough time for the electeds to get together, decide what they want, and then for us to make sure that we give appropriate time for people to put in bids. Okay, just wanna make sure that, you know, we're not gonna miss out on anything, or that we're giving just appropriate time, that when it's needed, you know,
Yeah,
that we can get good bids. So we're being accountable with the money, right? So we're getting
Yeah.
3 or 4 bids, no one's feeling rushed, we get.
We would plan to have the RFP process completed by the committee of the whole meeting for August.
Okay.
I mean, I think there might be 2 days in September with the way the meeting falls that we would award it officially, but I think we can make that work.
So a motion's been made and supported. Is there any further
Or excuse me, if we
discussion?
did it in August, we would have plenty of time, excuse me, for that regular meeting in September to have it finalized.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it, the motion's been approved. Number 7, we have the service weapon replacement program from the sheriff.
So during, service weapons have an 8 to 10 year lifespan. We're in the current year 8 into 9 for the current weapons that we're using. We've had 2 failures of our weapons on the range in the past year. Failures meaning they actually had a breakdown of equipment, not just a normal jam. So that led us to looking into changing out our service weapons. And when I had my budget meeting with the administrator and finance director, explaining what that situation was about, and they suggested we bring it forward to this year. So I appreciated that, and we were prepared to move forward. We got bids from Michigan Police Equipment and from Keesler Supply. Learned a lot about Keesler Supply. They supply a lot of the country, not just Michigan. And they came in with a better price for the weapon. The weapon we're looking at is going from a Glock 40 caliber to a Glock 9mm. We're also looking to go to optic sighting systems, as well as flashlights on guns. Kind of get us into the 21st century.
Yep.
Guys got to play with them a little bit yesterday on the range, and we're real happy about it. So this is our recommendation to move forward. We will sell the guns, currently the 40 calibers, to bring revenue back in to help offset the cost of this process.
Number 2, I think the ammunition for the 9mm is less, so that's about a $4,000 a year roughly.
And the
savings.
capacity of weapons is more too.
The capacity in the weapon itself and the ammunition is cheaper. And the type of 9mm rounds used today are much higher quality than they were 10 years ago. So.
I move that we move the service weapon replacement program forward.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Sheriff, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. So the purchase here is $43,919. The question I had asked you is with the anticipated return of approximately $11,000, does that return go back to the same account where this is going to get expensed out of?
I'm not sure exactly how finance would handle that, but one way or another.
Normally?
So, well, like, this is a capital project improvement, so it's gonna come out of the capital project. When money comes in, that revenue, it normally would go into the general fund. I mean, we can move it over there if you want to.
I mean, how's this normally handled?
I just said it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would normally the expense comes out of the capital improvement fund and the revenue would flow back into the general fund.
Okay.
But then usually as part of the budget, we're transferring an annual amount into the public improvement fund as well. So, I mean, you know, it would eventually end up back over there anyway.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure. Okay. Is there any further discussion? We have motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion's been approved. Thank you, Sheriff.
He's still up.
He's still up. All right, number 8, squad car replacements.
So kind of the same process during our budget meeting with Administrator Newton and Finance Director Renfro, and we were talking about the need for replacement vehicles for next year. Then the Finance Director said, well, let me go step back a little bit. So we had 2 vehicles that went out of service this year, one due to a crash and another one due to an engine failure. And as I was about to say, Finance Director Renfro said that the one vehicle was still on the leasing plan, and so there would be a way to just replace that vehicle. And so we got a quote from the state purchasing from Berger Chevrolet for Tahoes and then equipment replacement for those vehicles as well. And that's what we're bringing forward today.
We already got the check for it being totaled out, so it just kinda makes sense. He was making lease payments on it, from the motor pool fund, so why not replace that vehicle with the check.
yeah.
Makes sense.
And it's gonna probably take us a year to get it in service anyway, so the quicker we get it in, the better.
That was part of the discussion too,
Yeah.
is that those take a while, so the earlier we could get it in, you know, the better we're at in terms of getting it outfitted and back out on the street.
I move we move the forward.
Second.
All right, so we have motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion's been approved. Thank you. Okay, we are on number 9. Classification and compensation study. We have someone from the class comp committee.
So I can speak on this. So the class compensation committee was created in March. We were tasked with drafting an RFP and soliciting quotes for the completion of a new classification and compensation study. We had given an update in May on the RFP, and it had gone out. Proposals were submitted by June 7th. We had 9 proposals that were received. We sent those out as a separate attachment because it would have made the packet like 500 pages. But we did give that to everybody for review. The bid tab and a recommendation from the committee was included in the packet. Of the 9, we had actually held a meeting this past Monday to review the proposals and kind of talk about what the committee felt would be a good path forward. Ultimately, the committee is recommending municipal consulting services. They've had a presence here in the state for a long time. They actually used to be based right here in Michigan before the owner moved out west, but overwhelmingly when we've participated in other market studies that are being done by other municipalities, municipal consulting services is one of the main ones that we're seeing inquiries coming in from. In terms of cost, it was middle of the road at about $55,000. That includes roughly $550 per job classification up to $100. And then there's some travel expense that would be included as well for them to travel out. We really liked that they have a kind of 3-pronged approach. So it's not just looking at the job descriptions and saying, okay, here's what we think. It also involves, an employee questionnaire form to kind of capture, is there anything maybe that isn't in the job description that an employee can report that we're making sure we're incorporating. And then in addition to that, meeting with all of our elected officials and department heads to review both of those items as well. So here's job description, here's what we got back from the questionnaires. Is all of this accurate, first of all, and then is there anything else that you'd like to add as well too? Anything that we're missing? So they really want to do, an overall approach to make sure that everything is captured properly. When we looked at some of the other kind of more low-cost proposals, it didn't seem like they were as extensive in terms of some of the things that they were doing. Or the other big key was that they didn't have quite as much experience, either across the board in terms of what it looked like they had for a repertoire of working with these sorts of studies at this scale, or relatability in terms of the state of Michigan itself. There were some that looked like they had worked exclusively in places like Florida and, maybe that region, but things are a little different from state to state. So, when we looked at that sort of relevant experience, municipal consulting services was at the top. When we looked at the approach, we had a lot of things from there that we really liked. And then looking at the wealth of experience that they had, I would note Municipal Consulting Services is actually working with the state of Michigan right now on completing a study. So they have experience at varying degrees of level of governance too. So down, from your cities and villages on up to counties as well as the entire state. So, I think that brings with that, an understanding of the state overall, but being able to understand the intricacies of the different sizes of organizations. It's not just, we've done organizations of 30 people. We can handle 100. We wanted to make sure somebody was able to deal with the size and scope of this as well.
Very good, and that's why we formed the class comp committee, right? And we have some very valuable committee members on there, stakeholders that are, they're gonna be able to do a deep dive, and you guys have done a great job with this so far. Does anyone from the board have any thoughts, questions, concerns?
Yes, I did. First of all, I want to congratulate the committee because I agree. You guys did a great job just going through those 9 RFPs. And this was my favorite too. So at any rate, my question is, I'd like to see this done as soon as possible. So when are they gonna be able to start? I mean, have we had any kind of a conversation with them regarding how soon they would be able to start?
That's a good question. I mean, I think obviously we haven't really approached them yet. You know, the idea was to figure out what path we were gonna go here. I mean, we did have timelines in there.
Yeah, I see
They had
that.
estimated with most
Yeah.
of them, I think municipal consulting services was an approximately, I think,
6 months.
6-month
Yeah.
turnaround time. So, you know, obviously we would reach out to them as soon as this were adopted and start the ball rolling on getting that going. We're looking at close to the end of the calendar year, somewhere in that time frame roughly.
5 months would be December.
Yep, so it could carry into January, but
I think they did say though in their packet that they couldn't start immediately, that it would be at the end of August or something.
Yeah, I think-
didn't they have?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think there was
I'm
something
not
in there
trying
from
to
Yeah.
them.
contradict
No,
you,
no,
but I think they said they need
Yeah,
a
I
little
think,
lead
yeah,
time.
Yeah, and I
I do
think
remember
you're
that,
right.
so,
It would be best not to implement right at January as well, too.
I agree with
No, I
that too.
get that.
So, I mean, if it's 6 months out from there, then we're looking at like February or March, that would be much better.
I know it says 55,000. The travel expenses, what do you think that, do we have any idea what that might cost and entail? I mean, travel expenses, $2,000 versus
Oh.
$10,000. I mean, you can, I don't
think.
And then additional
I don't
things.
think they necessarily have to travel here, they could do a lot remotely, but there could be some in person. It just depends, I guess,
They
on
did say
what.
that.
They wanted one trip.
One
Sorry,
trip,
no,
yeah.
Trip in person.
They said one trip, and I
So it was
thought-
basically, I'm assuming plane and accommodations and food for 1 or 2 people from Colorado, probably 5,000-6,000, somewhere in that
I
range.
thought they said,
I don't
On top
think,
of the 55?
I don't think they had
That's
a
on top
set
of the
price, I
55,
think
yeah.
they just said travel would be charged at actual cost, something like that.
yeah, I read something.
So just as Commissioner Locke said, that's on top of the 55, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
No,
55.
that's included, the travel, I'm sure was
The-
included.
It's plus travel expenses and $175 an hour for any additional work.
Yeah, and I think when we had calculated the number of classifications, we had that at, I believe it was 89. This actually incorporated up to 100, so we know that there is some leeway there too, that we had a couple different options where maybe we might look at some minor tweaks to some jobs, you know, some that maybe might be added, so we've got a little leeway there too, that, you know, I don't anticipate that we're automatically gonna go over that amount. You know, and it broke down to about $550 per job classification based on 100. So it gives us about 11, and I think if I don't see us adding more than 11 classifications.
Well, I for one am excited to get this moving. Anybody else have any thoughts, questions, concerns?
I think this is gonna be really good. This will be transparent for everyone, and, correct me if I'm wrong, will they be doing periodic audits on this to make sure that everything is still where it needs to be?
I think with the final report from them, basically what they would do, and I think what I'm excited for is, part of the final report is outlining what procedures and processes need to be put into place to maintain this on an ongoing basis. And so that would include, and I think maybe where we need to look at is county policy. So essentially, that final report will probably give us some policy guidelines as to like, this is how you would approach classifications, reclassifications in the future. This is what the methodology is for how you approach these things. We would plan to implement that as well. And I think I don't think that particular one included an ongoing, you know, audit. But the idea was essentially to implement some sort of a system that would, you know, fall in line with what their recommendations were this is how we make sure we maintain this into the years into the future.
Yeah, that's an important piece, because we want to make sure that our investment is going to be
Absolutely.
worth it for many years to come.
Yeah, because I mean, and the maintenance portion is key, right? Because it may be great when you first started out, but after 3-4 years, I mean, if you aren't, you know, maintaining that system correctly and things get out of whack, that's where you can run into major, you know, issues potentially.
So for the sake of budgeting, do we say 60,000? I mean,
Not to exceed.
not to exceed 60,000, something like that, just so There is some
That could
leeway
be
for travel
a cap on
expenses,
there.
and it makes it easier for budgeting purposes.
Mm. That makes sense.
I mean, you can put
Yes.
that forward.
Yeah, so I would, is anybody else wanting to talk about it? I would move that we go forward with this option for the class compensation study with a budget set to 60,000.
So not to exceed 60,000.
Not to exceed 60,000.
A second?
Motion's been made and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion's been approved. Okay, last item for the evening, we've got the clerk, register, treasurer, chief judge request for pay grade changes.
Thank you for moving forward the class count, because as you know, the clerk, treasurer, and myself all support that. And I think that I drew the short straw, so I'm the one speaking on our proposal, and we'll keep it brief. But I think that we set forth things in our memo, the rationale and reasoning behind things. There was a typo in the memo. You might have caught it. We didn't, after even reading it multiple times, that on page 4, the treasurer's foreclosure specialist was labeled as a court position, but we do not have a foreclosure specialist in our office. That is Hope's position. So I just wanted to correct the memo verbally. But basically, as you know, we have all been supporting class comp, and we feel that having that done is imperative, and so that sounds like it's moving forward now. And we wrote this memo when we were under the belief that there were gonna be other positions that were gonna be reclassified before class comp. And so I think, like I said, the memo is pretty self-explanatory, so we're available if you have questions about it. But our concern is just to make sure that we have a fair process for all of our workforce, because we all rely on them, and we can't do any of our jobs without them. So I don't think I really need to say more to drive home that point, and that's where we were coming from.
Sure. Thank you. Anybody from the board?
So just with the class comp study going forward, do you want us to just go ahead and set this to the side?
Well, I don't know what's happening with respect to other issues, so that's why we brought this forward when we did, and we put it together very quickly, which is why there's a typo in it, but because I was getting numerous contacts from employees about this issue, as I know the clerk and the treasurer were too, and so we wanted to be sure that you were aware of where we're coming from on this.
Well, this kind of hinges on, you know, other discussions that are going on, what's decided with those other discussions.
Yep.
So, I would not feel comfortable with any decision on this until other things get solved.
Well, and it could be, you know, that with the class count going forward, I mean, a determination could be made by the board next month that, hey, we're gonna go forward, or next month, excuse me, at the next meeting, that we're gonna go forward with the class comp, and we're not gonna entertain classification changes until the completion of class comp. I mean, that would be one option.
Just for my clarification, so if we do that, and we would move it forward today, we would then have to remove it from the consent agenda at the next meeting if we're looking at the class comp study first, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, say that again one more time?
What action are we looking to do on this scenario? If we move this forward, it would be under the consent agenda for the next meeting. But this kind of hinges on what we're doing at the next meeting, right? With our class comp study or not? Am I just?
Not in my estimation, I don't speak
Part of it?
for
Okay,
any of
okay.
you, but I guess the reason we wrote the memo, to be fully transparent, is because it was our belief there were gonna be positions reclassified
Sure.
based on what occurred at the last meeting, but our understanding was there was to be a meeting on that topic, and then that may be coming back to the Board of Commissioners in July. I don't know,
I gotcha.
because that's not my lane to be in. I'm in the lane of the clerk, the treasurer, or myself, that we don't want this to get put on the back burner if that's going forward, so. But we are very happy to have class comp go forward, and we believe that will address our concerns. It's just, I think it's self-explanatory in the memo what our position is.
We don't know either whether or not we're gonna have anything in July as a board, do we? Or did I miss something?
I'm with you.
So I believe we should just wait till the comes back, study comes back.
Do we put this under unfinished business for the next cow? Is that what we're doing?
We don't have to do nothing if we don't move anything else.
Yeah, you don't wanna move it forward, cause then you can,
We just go with the class comp, we don't have to do nothing.
For all offices?
For all, that's one, for, if we don't do nothing for all offices,
That's fine.
for us, because the class comp for $60,000, that's for all the offices.
I think it would be important probably then to just be clear that that was the determination, that we will move forward with the class comp and no changes will be made to any classifications until that is completed.
And that's what we move forward to July, right?
That could be, yes.
Do you have to take action on anything?
Oh, yeah, we don't have to take action on any things, we got that.
We just added the class
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be the other thing
I
is,
mean, there is a pending action though that got sent away.
Oh, that's right.
What was that?
That's not my issue, that's probably another elected official's lead. There was direction from the Board of Commissioners for a meeting to occur,
Sure. Yeah, I do recall that.
yes.
and it was,
so do we want a meeting with you guys?
Mm-mm.
we don't need a meeting. I guess our position still is, and it's the same position, that if there are going to be positions reclassified before class comp, we would like our plan considered as well. It's up to you all what you do about anything, and we understand that.
We would be stupid.
And we're not saying we're not happy about class compensation, because we are.
I think the argument is simple to summarize in that, I think what's being stated here is that if you're going to entertain movement of job classifications and scoring, that you have to be consistent about it. So if somebody, if you're gonna entertain it in one area, you'd have to be willing to
Do it
in
to
others.
everybody.
But the other option is to say, well, we will let the class comp speak for itself when that is done.
And that makes more sense.
All right, do we have any further discussion, either from the board or anyone in attendance?
I have a couple comments.
Who's that?
You're ready for public comments?
That's
When we get to, yeah, we'll be there in just a moment.
Not yet.
So we have this on our agenda as item number 10. Mr. Parliamentarian, please.
We just, if you don't wanna do anything, we do nothing. You don't have to make a motion,
No,
it just
that's right.
sits, and, cause it's better to just let it sit than fail it, cause if you fail it, you can't bring it up again. If you set it, you can come back at any
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
All right, so we're just putting that out
Good
there. There's no further discussion or no motion being put forth. I'm just gonna move along to the next item in our agenda, or excuse me, the next.
Yeah, now we got.
Okay, so moving along, we're gonna go into public comment. Again, same rules apply, 3 minutes. Please do not address any commissioner directly and state your name.
Monica, did you have a chance to print those out for me?
Oh, you only got one?
I was hoping one for everybody.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wasn't here.
That's fine, I
Heather.
know you printed it. That's fine. That's fine.
I can hand it around. Betsy Carls, 29360 US Highway 12, Niles. Again, everybody, I've been here before, I'm very passionate about and concerned about the dogs at animal control. And since the chain of command with the project goes from the sheriff, the animal control, the sheriff to you guys, I just kind of wanted to share some of my thoughts and concerns as this moves forward. I'm happy to hear that you approved the dog exercise area at the last meeting, but I am concerned that it still does not resolve the dog run issue, to have multiple runs for various dogs. Wondering if everybody took this into consideration, because you should be able to turn out multiple dogs, like 5 or 6 at the same time. Then you can clean the pens, you can put that dog back in. This would save the county on time and money and labor to be able to have multiple runs to turn the dogs out at the same time. So I have drawn, and I can email it to everybody. I emailed it to Monica, hoping she could print this out. But this is a barn drawing that I did.
that started with what Ron had drafted up. And then on each end of each stall, I have a little door that could also go into a 10 by 20 run. He had a 40 by 60 barn. So the 60 length of the barn would then have 10 by stalls, and then it would have a 10 by 20, and then a big dog run area at the end. So they'd have multiple areas. So I just wanted to include this as everybody's thinking about things and incorporating this. And to know, you know, they, on their diagram, they have the extra expense of an additional 6 foot and then a 5 foot fence. I take Mustangs for the Bureau of Land Management. I mean, I'm bringing in full-grown 1,200 pound horses. I only have a 6 foot fence, a heavy duty 6 foot fence. So concerned again about the additional expense of why we need that addition, because the chain link fence is going to be expensive. So why do we need to do that? I know they're concerned if the dog gets out, but I adopted my gunner from there, and that dog could run like a deer, and he could jump 5 foot, but I stopped him at 5 foot with my horse foot, you know, my horse fence. So just, you know, I'm trying to, you know, work with them and want to help everybody with this project. Again, just very, very concerned that we take everything in consideration, and that this project is a good in the future, because it wasn't properly drawn out in the beginning. Otherwise, we would be in this situation now if they would have had the dog runs at that point in time. So if we take all this into consideration, then, you know, we can use the money wisely, have an efficient facility. You're better to invest in the construction of the facility than to keep doing more and more labor. I know Ron's got a lot of help. He's gotten a lot of dog walkers. I mean, I'm ecstatic. Things are happening. But just wanted to put all this back into the program. So I will have, we can email these to you later. I'm sorry, I didn't have my printer broke down, so I want to get it to you. But so again, and Ron, I think Shelley was going to give you a copy, I thought. Yeah. So
Very good.
anyhow, that's just what I want to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Floor still open.
Here.
Just wanted to report on just a few things that are going on in the prosecutor's arena. One, and we often send out press releases on this, but we didn't have the opportunity of time to do this, but we did have two fairly significant jury trials in the last 2 weeks, and as the rotation happened to occur, different individuals in my office are handling different types of cases. Jason Ronning handled both of these jury trials. One, and both of them satisfyingly resulted in guilty verdicts. One was with Travis Shell, an individual who took a knife to a face of another citizen, I believe in Dowagiac, Michigan, sliced his face up with a knife, and claimed self-defense. And again, certainly one of the things that you find out when you're in law enforcement, when you're in prosecution, is that there's no perfect case. Every case has a defense, and so it's again important to have skilled attorneys to handle these. And again, fortunate to have the result of that. The other one was Benjamin Lewis, likewise an assault case where it was a habitual individual with long record of domestic violence. Jason again brought on certain motions and so forth. We were able to get in the history of the domestic violence activity. The defendant pulled her hair, pulled her through the house, did others things to her. Ultimately, prior ex also came in and he was convicted as well. In addition to that, want to report on a couple really sober things, and this is not lighthearted at all, but obviously I did have the opportunity to attend the funeral for Melissa Haggard, who was the assistant prosecutor over in St. Joe County, mother of 3, who was killed by a drunk driver on her way to work a few weeks ago, and again, it was the prosecutor there spoke very eloquently. I'd also note that tragically too as well, because life is important regardless of whether it's a defendant or a victim or anything else. In that case, the defendant or would-be defendant also died a number of days later after the injuries from that. And finally, again, too, equally, long ago somebody told me wise, when you're doing a prosecution, you're certainly we support the victims, but the defendants are people too, and they're some of them in varying degrees have bad things in their life that they do, some chronically, some of them remotely. But if you recall, also Dennis Love, he was the bank robber that we had just recently here in Cassopolis. He did die in prison just a couple of days ago. So again, I'm sure that I know it's tragic to his family as well, but again, that's just part of the process of life. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
To the left or to the right? To the right. Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I know you've heard enough from me today, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring to your attention that Kelly James Dura, who's my probate register adoption specialist, and Lisa Withers, she's our district court administrator and magistrate and problem-solving court person. They both graduated as ICM certified court managers,
Oh,
which
good.
is like, there's 3 levels to the program. The ICM certified court managers is level 1. The certified court executive that you recognize Raven for is level 2, and Sarah Matthews, our court administrator, is just completing the fellows program and will have a recognition ceremony at the United States Supreme Court in July.
Wow.
And so, and as part of that process, she delivers and gets a paper published, basically, and so she's been working hard on that for a long period of time. So I just wanted to give you a precursors that'll be coming, but I wanted to recognize Kelly and Lisa because they worked really hard on that program as well, and it's a time commitment, and they're doing it as part of the Michigan cohort, which allows us to save a lot of money because they do it mostly virtually. But then they got to go to Lansing to be recognized at the Michigan Supreme Court. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them and their hard work on that.
All right, anyone else from the public?
Jeff Van Bell, I was on that class con committee, and I just want to thank the board for moving forward with this. Commissioner Lawrence, Commissioner Howie sat in on the last meeting. Commissioner Marquez, I agree with you. I really like that proposal. Seemed like they wanted our business. And so it's not dirt cheap, but it's not out of line.
No.
To answer your question, RJ, on travel costs, we recently paid to have a consultant come in from Minneapolis for one of the governmental aid boards. It was about $1,500, just to give you a guideline on that. And typically with meals and stuff, they follow the standard IRS guidelines. So this is what these people do, so I think we'll be in a realm on that. To step forward, a little further forward, the electeds have pretty much agreed to get behind this class comp. We don't see the nodding of heads here, people? Very good, thank you. Thank you.
You're giving us the thing, man.
So
It's this way.
I want you guys to be thinking of the same thing. We've got to coalesce behind this thing if it's gonna work. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, the floor is still open. Anyone else?
Don't do it.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and close the floor. We do not have closed session. We'll go around if there's any board member comments or announcements.
No.
All
Move to
right.
adjourn.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Approved. Thank you.